Hello and welcome to video number 14, Pranayama, meditation, stretching and breathing. This is an overview of the pranayama and meditation limbs of yoga. There are a lot of practice drills to do in this module, so after you watch this video, spending some time working on these concepts, as well as an assignment to bring to the group meet. So just a little overview. We're focusing this one module to look at these deeper concepts of yoga. So as we mentioned, the yoga for fitness training is focused a little bit more in the fitness or the gym setting. So very heavily on the poses, and the considerations of the different types of bodies and ability that will come into the room and how to serve all of those. There are All right, so just exploring this three-dimensional breath, you have this image in your manual on page 23, and it's just showing how on the inhale, so the image more to the left, there is a movement of the lungs, not only, or the rib cage, excuse me, not only outward, and we'll see that kind of spreading wide, but also shifting upwards. You'll notice that some of those ribs up at the very top are going to spread out and lift. And the diaphragm will draw down. So it's kind of creating this action to help give the lungs more space to be able to expand and take that full breath. Now, on the exhalation, you can see that the top part of the ribs are going to drop. The diaphragm is going to pull up towards the center, helping the lungs push out more of the air. And those lower ribs are going to fall down. And we'll see in our own bodies, and we'll feel this a little bit in some practicing, about the sensation of not only this side motion and lifting motion, but even in the front and the back body. And how do we help our students who walk into the door, maybe your first timer, how do we help them discover this three-dimensional breath for themselves? All right, let's get into the breath. So we're going to practice a few techniques just to help feel the movement of the body. The first one is actually a Pilates technique. It's a breath awareness centering technique, and it's called accordion breath. So a couple of options here. You can cross your arms over and place the hands on the sides of those lower ribs. Or if that doesn't feel comfortable, you can always bring your hands out to either side and place your hands. But we're looking at these more lower ribs, okay, so just about the space where the bra line would be and below. So go ahead and just find which position feels good for you. You're going to have an easy sitting position, so maybe in your easy sitting pose or your half Padmasana or full Padmasana. And if that's not comfortable, go ahead and grab a chair and sit in a chair. So when we do our pranayama practice, we want the body to be aware. We want the body to be aligned, but we also want to have a softness in it. So just take a moment to feel your sit bones pressing in, maybe move around a little bit and let your spine settle and stack, and just feel where you can relax into the strength of the structure of the body. And we'll place our hands over to the side. I'm just going to turn a little bit here just to demonstrate. Shoulders roll back and down. Find that nice Lengthen spine. And when we inhale, our goal is to push our hands outward. So inhaling, see if you can feel the hands falling. And you might notice that if you empty the lungs a little more than maybe we normally would in a regular breathing pattern, you can really feel the hands falling in towards the center. Keeping that tall spine, inhaling. Pressing into the hands and then exhale. Feel. So just like an accordion, we want to be feeling that movement. So you can bring some awareness to the body as well as to how deeply your students are filling their lungs. So for first-time students, awareness in the breath can feel a little unattainable, or maybe they're just coming in from craziness. They're on their lunch break, or just things were going nuts, and they come in and they're like, oh, I can't wait to just move around a little bit and start working this through. And then they're being told, sit still and watch your breath. So just think for a second, what are some ways, because we know this is a beneficial practice. We know that that breath awareness is going to bring them to that space. It's going to help them clear their mind. It's going to help them feel more focused in the physical practice of the poses. So stretching routine, bringing in a little bit of movement along with the breath work is a great way to do this. So we're going to practice just a breathing and stretching routine. So we have the three-dimensional breath, but we're going to think about the three planes of motion. So starting off, let's interlace our fingers. Take an inhale. On the exhale, turn your palms out, press them forward, round through your back. Bow your head. Hold it here and take a deep inhale into the back of the body. And exhale. Coming back to center, inhale, lift the arms up overhead. So when we come up here, we're going to give some cueing about finding some length, dropping the shoulders so the neck feels long. And when the hands press to the ceiling, let the rib cage lift off of the waist, growing long in the torso. And release the hands, stay nice and tall, reach them behind the back, interlace them here, shoulder blades, elbows pull together. Those knuckles are going to reach down towards the floor, chest is going to lift. You can look up at the sky if that feels comfortable in the neck. Take a deep inhale here. On the exhale, stay tall, release the hands. Good, inhale. Hands come out to the sides. Now we want this to be active. So we're not just like lifting the arms up. We're reaching those fingertips, stretching as far out as if you were trying to reach the wall on either side of you. Good. Now take that right hand down. Lift the left hand up. Avoid collapsing on this side as you bend over and look up at the sky. Let the arm be back enough that you can look up above you. It's not blocking. And come on back up. Nice and active. Take it to the other side. Feel that nice lengthening here. Let's just stay one inhale. One exhale. Back to center on the inhale. A little bit of transverse movement. Let's come across into our twist. Left hand to the right knee, right hand back behind. Press and get tall. Draw the belly button back towards the spine and twist in to that exhale. Finding that compression. Hold the twist while you inhale, get taller. Exhale, hold that tallness as you add, get a little deeper. And let's inhale back. And exhale over to the other side. We want our shoulders to be parallel to the floor. So if that means putting a block behind you and placing your hand on that, that'll help us keep the twisting motion where we want it to be. Good. Inhale, grow taller. Exhale, twist deeper. And inhale, come back. One movement, one breath. Exhale, interlace the fingers, palms press forward, around the back. Inhale, rise up. Stay tall. Exhale, hands behind the back. Inhale, open up the heart. Exhale, stay tall, release the hands. Inhale, reaching out to the sides. And exhale, find that nice side bend. Inhale, back to center. And exhale. Inhale, back up. Finding that twist. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale, twist to the other side. Inhale, coming back. And exhale, hands to the knees. Find that sitting position. Maybe close the eyes and take a few breaths here and notice how the body feels. How does the breath feel? How does the chest move? Maybe in comparison to before that exercise. Right, so we have a routine. We know what we want to do to help our students find that expansion of their breath and in their body. How do we cue it? So let's take a look at what some of the ways in which we can cue for our students. Okay, so how do we describe some of the movements that we want our students to do to help access that breathing? So we can look at cues that tell them how to move or focus on what is moving. And then we have cues that focus on what they should be feeling. So we heard many of these when we did the stretching routine together. Under the movement side, things like round your spine or lengthen the spine, grow tall. Something like sternum lifts towards the sky or the heart lifts towards the sky. We can tell students to avoid collapsing on one side. A lot of times in those side bends, they tend to crunch over on one side. We don't want to say things like, don't do this, but we can say, avoid doing this. Telling them to place their hands on the sides of the ribs, so just like in our accordion breath, and allowing them to tune into the movement of the body. Shoulders pulled away from the ears. We do that, it helps open up the front of the chest. And then when we move into the sensation, things like ribs lifting off of the waist so they can feel where is it that they're finding that lengthening. Feel the ribs spreading apart on the inhale. Notice any tension in the chest as you take in more breath than the last. So think about these different types of cues, the movement and the sensation cues, and think of some that might work with the way that you like to talk, what feels natural for you to be able to articulate to your students how to tune into this deeper three-dimensional breath. All right, this brings us to pranayama. So, pranayama. We talked about this very briefly in the intro to yoga video. So the very first video, I mentioned very briefly about pranayama when we talked about the 8 limbs of yoga. Now remember, we think about asana, and this training is really focusing a lot on asana. That is one of 8 limbs of yoga. Remember, we had our yamas and niyamas, so that has to do with relationships with others, relationships within ourselves. Then the asana, that physical practice. Then pranayama. And then the last 4 are focused on the journey into meditation. So pranayama is a huge piece of the yoga practice, and a lot of traditions of yoga use pranayama before, after, and even in its own practice as part of their lineage. So pranayama, remember we said it was the extension of the breath. And in the subtle body video, we talked a little bit about chakras and the nadis. And the nadis are those channels that move through the nostrils and down to the base of where the kundalini lies. And we can create heat with breath work that helps kind of awaken the body. There's a couple of other concepts, and this is focused on much more deeply in a 200-hour training. So for the purposes of our training, I want to introduce some of the concepts, the understanding of pranayama, and a couple of the basic techniques. So let's explore pranayama a little bit closer. All right, so prana means life force, or the breath sustaining the body. Yama translates into to extend or draw out. So together, the two mean breath extension or control. So that is the more technical understanding of what pranayama is, extending the breath. So what's the purpose of pranayama? Why do we do it? It quickly balances energy, stabilizes mood. There's some research that shows even 10 minutes of mindful breath work can start to light up areas of the prefrontal cortex, which is where we feel that sense of connection and intuition. It also activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps settle. So, opposite of that sympathetic or fight or flight, it helps focused breath work, helps to calm that autonomic nervous system. It allows you to experience mindfulness in a new way. It can be a stand-in for meditation, and we will discuss that a little bit. It's a good break from the physical practices. So if you have vigorous physical poses, asana that you're working on, and you feel your body is being exerted, to be able to sit and do some pranayama practice to help center. And as I mentioned, it's an important limb of yoga. It is just as important as the poses in a full yoga practice. All right, so the Ujjayi breath. The Ujjayi breath is practiced by closing off the glottis, where the vocal cords are, to kind of create a smaller tube that the air will go through. And what you will see or notice in yourself is that as you do that, the air that's coming in through the nose will have the space. It's like waiting in line to get down into the lungs. And so over on the right, you see this image of all these little swirlies. And I love that image because I feel that happening when I'm practicing the Ujjayi breath. The breath will swirl around in the nasal cavity and in the back of the throat. And then as it moves down into the lungs, you can imagine that it's swirling there as well, because we hold that for the exhale. Now, when you do this, you will create a sound. This is an audible breathing technique for children. Like people who do yoga with children, they will use sometimes the things like the Darth Vader breath, but you can also imagine it being like hearing water running through the pipes. So I'm going to come a little closer to the microphone. And I'm going to practice just a few breaths of Ujjayi breath. I want you to hear what that sounds like, and then see if you can generate that in your own body. All right, the abdominal breath. And the abdominal breath, there's actually a couple of pranayama practices that use a little more of a forceful breath. So this is something that you might want to introduce to a group of students who may have some curiosity, may enjoy some of the more foundational breath works. But the abdominal breath, let's just practice one of these together. Earlier, on the inhale, we let the belly get nice and big, nice and round. And then we use a force through pushing in the belly, forcing the diaphragm to push up and allow the breath to come out with a little bit more force. So we can start with our hand on the belly first, taking a nice inhale. And when you exhale, push with the belly as if you were somebody had punched you in the stomach, right? Pulling it in. Try it again. Feel the belly drawing in. Inhale. Feel the belly come out. And then exhale. Now, one of the things you want to be aware of in this is that we're not actually going to round through. We're going to keep that integrity of the spine when we do that breath. All right, let's take a look at one more I'm going to give to you, Nadi Shodhana. Many people have heard of this one. A lot of people feel like it's silly, but it has to do with finding balance in the nadis. So let's take a look at that one. All right, Nadi Shodhana. This is alternate nostril breathing. And as you can see, the lady in the picture here, she has her pointer finger and middle finger are curled in. So the thumb is going to press into one side of the nose, and then in the alternate nostril, the ring finger alongside of the pinky finger will press into the opposite nostril. All right, Nadi Shodhana. So we'll take that pointer finger and middle finger and curl them in. Before we do that, actually take your finger all the way up to the bridge of the nose, where you can feel that hard bone up at the top, and then start sliding down until you feel your finger drop in, right at the end of that bone. So you want to place your finger just at the bottom of that spot. Okay, so go ahead and curl those fingers in. We'll start off with that ring finger. Find the spot. Go ahead and exhale. Fully inhale. Now switch. So now the thumb comes to the other side. Exhale. Inhale. Switch. Exhale. Inhale. And switch. Exhale. And inhale. All right, so the purpose behind Nadi Shodhana is to help balance out the two sides, the feminine and the masculine, the high energy, the low energy. It's to help us find a balance. So the idea is if we create through this practice of energizing the nadis, we can bring heat to the body down at the base of that central nadi, the Sushumna nadi, if you remember that from our subtle body video. And that's where that kundalini lies, the coiled snake. And when we generate enough heat, he stops blocking it, and we can find that true connection that, you know, in that yoga philosophy is what we're all looking for. Okay, so that was just our introduction, our taste of pranayama, and perhaps a few techniques that you could bring to your students. Another one to just kind of segue into our meditation is metered breathing. So that is that concept of breathing in to a count of 4, exhaling to a count of 4, maybe extending, you know, breathe in to the count of 4, now exhale to the count of 6, or pause, inhale to the count of 4, pause for 2, exhale to the count of 4, pause for 2. So all of these different ways in which we can bring this awareness into the breath can also serve as a meditation focus. So You can practice that as one of the meditation practices and just see how it feels for you. How does your body feel? How does your mind feel after doing not only a metered breathing, but all of these pranayama practices? So let's take a look at some other meditations that we can introduce to our students. All right, so our meditation, as we discussed, we can meditate on the pranayama techniques, meditating on the sensation or the way that it calms the mind. We can do visual meditation. So these, of course, would be done with the eyes open, focusing on some visual image. Auditory meditations, conceptual meditations, and guided meditation. So these are the ones, guided meditations are one that most of us are familiar with. Towards the end of the practice, there may be some focus on the breath or guided through relaxing through the muscles of the body, or guiding through a story, telling a story of walking through the woods, maybe coming upon some peaceful body of water, watching leaves, lots and lots of different guided meditations. But I'd like to back up to some of those middle meditations that I mentioned, just to bring some ideas into that. So let's take a look at visual, auditory, and conceptual meditations. All right, so many things that we can meditate on, so many things to just bring our focus. Remember, as we went through the 8 limbs of yoga and then further explored in the Yoga Sutras, this idea of bringing ourselves out of this busyness of everything and focusing on stabilizing, quieting the mind so that we're not seeing things through all of our filters, right? We're not reacting to things because of what happened early in our day or in our life, in our childhood. The practice of this centering and meditation is to be able to clear all of those things, to see every moment as it is and be able to respond with that true knowledge. But we just don't go there. We're very busy, right? We're all very busy. Our students are going to walk through that door thinking about what they've got to get to next already. We don't walk in and go, here I am, everything else goes away. So us as leaders and yoga teachers in the classroom want to help facilitate that quietness. So visual, one of my favorite ones, and I do this in the 200 hour, where we work on a flame. It's kind of hard to see it on in the video, but there's a nice little natural real flame here. And usually it's putting something lower, so the eyes can be partially closed, and you just allow the gaze to follow off the edge of the nose and kind of settle onto that visual spot. So allowing the mind or the eyes to settle on a flame. Maybe in your classroom, you might have some little image, a little picture of a flower or something like that that you can put out for students to settle on their eyes on, find this visual thing, or even just find a spot on the floor to let their eyes settle. Giving the mind something to do is a lot easier than just saying, quiet the mind. All right. So visual, giving that visual sense the opportunity to take over everything else. Auditory. What kind of things can we meditate on? Birds singing, wind chimes blowing, the ticking of a clock. You know, I have the nice thing about the bowls is that it's not just the initial sound, but the meditation on the vibration that lingers all the way into silence, the residual. We talked about that a little bit with Om when we looked at the Yoga Sutras, so meditating on Om, chanting Om. Chanting is, you know, as we discussed, something that not a lot of people are comfortable with. So you don't often see it incorporated in yoga classes in the gym setting. It may actually make someone feel like, oh, this isn't what I was hoping for. So just be careful if you ever do want to bring some of these more meditative, pranayamic, yogic philosophy concepts to your class, that you are doing them in very small doses and you are gauging the comfort of your students. All right, conceptual. So this one is any concept. I mean, in the Yoga Sutras, they say, you know, the concept of, you know, what is apple? You know, what is sky? The concept of thought, the concept of an emotion, you know, picking the emotion of love and letting yourself just dive into questioning and exploring this emotion of love, this experience that we have as humans. I would love for you to spend a little time thinking about what are some different visual, auditory, and conceptual meditations that you could bring to your classes. We can share them with each other at our meet, and we have an assignment for the guided meditation. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at all the assignments for this particular module. So we do have a few things that I would like you to work with. Practice that 3-dimensional breath daily. And that doesn't mean you have to spend 5 or 10 minutes. This can simply be a few breaths, feeling that accordion breath, or you can do the stretching and breathing routine, but do something to help bring your own awareness into that three-dimensional breath. Practice the different pranayama techniques. So we covered 3 specifically, 4 if you count our metered breathing. I would like for you to practice each of them at least once and notice which ones bring you a more centering kind of feeling, which ones make you feel calmer, which ones might make you feel more energized. And think about how you could bring this into your classes. Practice the different meditations over this next week or 2, depending on when you watched this module. You only need to do 3 to 5 minutes at a time. So try each one and notice if there's one that resonates more with you. Is there one that helps you feel like, wow, my mind just got really quiet. I feel like so zenned out. And now are there others where you're just like, this is ridiculous? Last, so this is the assignment for a group practice. You will either create or find a 5-minute guided meditation. It does not need to be a full 5 minutes. It can simply be a minute or 2. But I want it to be a guided meditation. So it can be a story. It can be a visual journey. It can be a muscle relaxation or a focus on with the breath thinking about the chakras or any of those things. You can go on the internet and Google guided meditations and find one that feels natural to you, something that you feel like, oh, I would love to do this in my class. When we get together in our guided meditation, you will be working in small groups and delivering your guided meditation to the others in your group. So just a little practice of voice. How do we speak? How is that different from how we might be giving our yoga directions? So I hope you enjoyed the information in this module. As I mentioned probably more than enough times, these are really important concepts of the yogic practice. Yoga is not just the physical practice. When people come to the class, yes, they want to move, they want to stretch, they want to feel good, but offering some of these other pieces through breathwork, awareness, through meditation, through even offering concepts of the yamas and the niyamas, all of that helps the people in your class feel a deeper sense of connection. So please work on those assignments. Write down any thoughts that you have, specifically thoughts of how these concepts fit into maybe the classes that you have experienced in the gym setting. It's a great opportunity for us to share and consider all of those different things. I look forward to seeing you all. We only have a few more modules, so we're coming up on the end of things. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you soon in person.